students, the National Assembly has also made a resolution that students should be given that 1 week, as well as even the Labour Party candidate, that's Peter Obi. There are about 4 million students scattered around the nation and about 45 universities. I think the University Commission should do what they can, because remember, the election is once in 4 years. And for a time in this country when the youth have shown more interest and participation in the election, I don't think the country in one way or the other should disenfranchise them. That's about 4 million votes that will not be part of the election if not given the opportunity. At least let it be a choice for the students to be able to go home. The schools are not taking care of their transport, they're not taking care of their movement. So they should give, I mean, if we could go on strike for 7 months, I don't see what is a problem if they're given 1 week to be able to participate in a civic, constitutional granted responsibility.
What about students who have registered in areas? Do you want to say something, Lakunle?
Yes. Am I hearing right that we said that we want to shut down the schools because of elections? It's a university where adults gather. They should be able to take time off. It's a weekend. Typically Fridays in most universities in this country, lectures end by 12 noon. Enough time for people who want to make the choice to travel to wherever they register to go, vote on Saturday, and come back. Like we said, it's a choice. You are committed to wanting to vote. Make that choice yourself. Make that move. I don't agree that we shut down universities for people to vote. So we'll shut down for 3 weeks because there's an election on the 25th and there's a second one. Are we shutting down for the duration of that period? I mean,
yes,
I can for the life of me not agree that we will be thinking that we want to shut down universities for an election.
Well, the thing here is that it's an existential situation whereby they will not be part of this election. Many of them are schooling far away from their homes. So they need
that's why it's a choice for them to make. We will not be setting the right precedences by doing things this way. The thing we should be talking about is from wherever they are, they should be able to vote, not to shut down the schools so that they can go long distances. The risk involved in traveling also is a consideration.
At the moment. You have a point, but INEC does not have that opportunity at the moment whereby you can easily switch your polling units at the last minute. I wish by technology they should be able to do that.
If
but
I have a child in, say, Maiduguri and registered in Lagos, I would encourage that child to stay in Maiduguri and not come to risk his or her life to come here to come and vote. I'm serious.
Well,
if there's no other way that child can vote from wherever he or she is at, I would not encourage any person to risk their lives to cross border, to cross states, to travel long distances to go vote. But if you are making that choice to do it, good, it's good for us to have it to do it, but I don't agree that the university should be shut down.
Now, students were out of school for a very long time last year due to the strike. Is it worth it to pull them out of school again with sessions that are already being compressed and rather tight to make sure that they get their learning?
That's why the recommendation was for a week or two. For, like I said, a national duty, because remember, the first election on the 25th is for presidential and House, National Assembly and gubernatorial, while the second one, 2 weeks after, is for the gubernatorial and then the state assemblies. So like I said, I think it's a once in 4 year excuse, and I think it's extremely important. And like I said, at a time when the youth, because if you remember in the past, even if the government gave students this opportunity, the interest was not there. So now that they're seeing it, I think it's the best thing to do to encourage them. Like you said, it's a matter of choice. They're not funding their transport. They're not moving them about. They're simply saying, take 2 weeks off and ensure you participate.
Let's go on to some messages. This one is from Izehi, and Izehi says, I don't understand why student unions are so quiet about this move to seemingly disenfranchise students from voting. Ladele says, how can we in 2023 be thinking, suggesting, or even discussing that schools should close for a period for elections? And Gary Newton says, yes, I don't agree to shut down But as to your statement, I disagree. So which statement are you disagreeing with, Gary? Okay, it's better to risk their lives than to risk their futures. All right, let's move on to the next story. And this is coming from Punch. Commercial banks in Nigeria will still accept old Naira notes from customers after the February 10th deadline. And this is according to the governor of the CBN, Godwin Emefiele. He stated this while appearing before the House Committee set up on the CBN Naira redesign policy. Now, he didn't give a duration for how much longer those notes would be admitted by the banks.
Yes. That's my story, right?
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So basically, there's been clamor and pandemonium nationwide about the deadline of the Naira notes going invalid. The 200, the 500, the 1,000 becoming tissue paper. Now, to that extent, for the first time in a long while, we've seen our National Assembly actually act with a sense of urgency. Some would wonder why they're so concerned about this Naira cutoff deadline. But they did get the CBN governor finally to appear at the House, and he stated to them that the process was in line with international best practice. Now, as regards their deadline request to move to June, he said they will still maintain the last date, which was the 31st of January. But because of the granting of their request from the presidency, they were going to give 10 more days, which ends on the 10th of February. Now, after the 10th of February, they'll also be given 7 extra days in line with the CBN Act. Now, the fear of most of the House of Rep members was that apart from those in rural areas, what about people who were not able to meet up within this short time stretch? The governor did say that, okay, to that extent, the CBN would still be accepting old notes even after the deadline. But the notes would cease to be a legal tender. So what that means is after the 10th of February, the old 200, 500, and 1,000 would no longer be used for transactions. However, if you are in possession of the old notes, you can take it to the banks and have it deposited. So his guarantee was that no Nigerian will lose their money in this situation. But what must be said is that we're fully aware, and I think it's been debated in many areas, that the objective of the CBN to prevent vote buying against the 25th election is in full swing. And I think this is what people need to keep into consideration. However, I would charge the CBN to ensure that they have as many points of distribution beyond the banks, because it's obvious that the banks are not enough to distribute Naira around the country. I mean, I'm all the way in the Southeast right now, and what we've noticed is that there are various points, all the POS, many POSs do not have cash, many stations do not have cash, many people have still not been able to change their old notes. So the transition or the migration or distribution rates needs to be stepped up. Their cash swap program, which was to give POSs about 30,000 Naira to be able to swap in rural areas. I think they need to do that also in the urban areas, or else the pandemonium will continue. In a few POS points that I went to yesterday, people were able to cash 10,000 Naira for 1,000 Naira at a charge of 1,000 Naira. So that goes to show you how expensive the Naira is at this time. And as someone said yesterday, for the first time in history, there's a greater demand for the Naira than there is for the dollar. Zibby, do you get that?
Let's look at some messages coming through. And Gary says, please, can someone explain if the ATM rejects 100 Naira bills? A lot of ATMs don't have cash in them because of unavailability of the new currency. And
the new currency doesn't affect the 100. Only the 200, 500, and 1,000 notes. Unfortunately, many ATMs are not dispensing the 100 Naira or the lower denominations.
Dadok says, so after the deadline and I perform transactions with the old notes and I take those old notes to the bank, does that mean the old notes is still... Okay, Dadox, I'm sorry, I can't really get your message, but no one is going to accept or give after that date. except the banks, which are mandated to accept them. Yes. And Kenneth says, can one travel from Maiduguri to Lagos in 12 hours? We know the youth are major numbers in this election. Keeping quiet and not voting kept them at home for all these months. Their future is important. I think the schools should be closed for a month. The sacrifice will be worth it. Let's take a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue the conversation here on Freshly Pressed. The WhatsApp number to send your messages to, again, is 0809 440 981.
First
I don't understand. I don't understand why people are even thinking of closing schools for election. We should be talking about making them vote where they are, even with the cards they have. Once you can, maybe the Beavers is online. So if I carry a Lagos card,
Beavers is not online though.
But there's provision for people to transfer their units. There was that provision.
Yes, it's been closed. It's been closed.
But then they should have done it earlier.
We should have been talking about this earlier. Eve of the election.
No, they were
didn't we know this was going to happen?
They were at home. They didn't know
Then
they
what
were
about-
No, didn't we know that this was going to happen? Whether they were at home or not. February, normally, schools are in session in February and March. Yes.
No, now.
What are you saying now? I'm not saying they were not at all. I'm saying normally, if there were no strikes, February and March, schools are in session. Yes, Auntie? February and March. That's right in the middle of first semester and Hamatan semester now. What are we saying now?
What about the students that registered around their university?
Those who that registered around the university, so you close down. So what are they doing?
They also
Yes.
out, right?
Unfortunately, INEC is not helping us in this matter. Remember, one of the considerations.
Today is somebody who is alive that worry about future. What are we saying now?
They should be able to vote around school.
Exactly. People, is that who is alive that worry about his future now?
It's a dicey one.
Somebody was just telling me the other day they kidnapped
somebody,
a member of his family. They raised 30 million to build the person. One of those who are not able to raise those monies in a country where you cannot guarantee safety or security of anybody on the road.
But if they're on holiday,
Lakunle.
What exactly?
We are home and they'll be safe.
Doing what?
I don't know.
They're in school right now, so they should close 2 weeks,
They
3
were going
weeks
on in a few seconds.
to go and vote, then come back. Because to their parents.
Miss Eva Johnson, don't you touch that dial.
Me.
Smooth 98.1. This is Freshly Pressed. We're looking at the news making the rounds. The WhatsApp number is 0809 440 981. And you can also tweet at Smooth981. We're streaming the show live on YouTube, by the way, so you can catch the live stream. Just search for us on YouTube, Smooth981. And you can even drop comments on there as well. So let's move on to Vanguard. Now, the federal government read the Riot Act to petrol marketers, directing them to end all smuggling out of the country or face stiff action from security operatives. Now, the Chief of the Defense Staff, General Irabo, says the government is not handicapped and will take alternative measures if these petrol queues fail to clear. And this meeting was also attended by the IGP, the Director of DSS, a representative of EFCC, the downstream regulator, and petroleum marketers as well.
I'll start from the perspective that it seems to me that our military, the DSS, the police, don't think that they have bigger issues to solve. By sitting in this meeting to other people to stop smuggling, to end queues and all that. I don't think that that is the job that they should be concerned with. That's my opinion. But when you consider that the country where we are, we have this mentality of quick fixes to everything, then you can consider it as a big deal, big job for them to do. Now, the quick one of the story of this, things that I marked in this story, for example, says the direct marketers to end all petroleum smuggling. That's one. Two, government is not handicapped and will take alternative measures if petrol queues fail to clear. That's two. Three, the third statement I'm putting out there is that the MD of NNPCL says petroleum shortage across the country was not due to supply challenges. I agree with him, my opinion. The idea that we consume 65 million liters per day is still numbers that is busting my head that I'm feeling to clear. And he's here saying that it is the downstream operators that are responsible for smuggling. So if we know, again, in this country many years ago, a labor leader stood up at the national discourse about petroleum subsidy that year, and he asked this set of questions. If it is smuggling that is putting us in this trouble, then it means that it must be big. If it is big, it is visible. If it is visible, that means we can see them. If we can see them, who have we arrested? If we have arrested any, who have we prosecuted? And so on and so forth. So when you look at it that way, we were here when even this same managing director of NNPC said that the stealing of our crude was responsible for one thing the other time, that we were not able to meet our quota. It meant that it was big people, they were doing big people, big ships, they were doing it. So the number of products that would have to be smuggled will not be done with 50-liter jerry cans. So if it is not done with 50-liter jerry cans, who are the ones doing it with trucks? Don't we know them? Don't we see it? How many of those ones have been arrested? The journey between here and Seneboda, do you know the number of roadblocks, police, custom, immigration, NDLA that you meet on this road between here and Badagry? So what are they doing there? It brings me back to a story many years ago as a member of the youth organization visiting the Japanese to Nigeria. And he said something to us then as children. He said that if Japan was a country occupying this place called Nigeria, they would have fenced it around. What are we doing about securing our borders? Those are the issues. Again, it comes back to the same story we're just talking about closing the schools to do election. It's the same thing here. You are ordering people to stop smuggling when you have not done something to prevent them from doing it.
So what is the role of customs in all this?
And your question is also a question that we ask. What is the job of all the security people at the borders everywhere? We're a country where, like President Obasanjo once said, where the frontage of the house is in Nigeria and the backyard of the same house is in Benin Republic. So how do you arrest that kind of somebody in that house? So there are many things out there that need to be done. Now, like I said a few weeks ago about this thing, the matter with this thing is like a open rebellion of the marketers, government directive. Again, it is about greed and hunger. No matter how much you talk about this thing, the people involved in this business will get hungrier, they'll get greedier. And that is what is playing out every time these things happen. The moment you put a roadblock to something, they create another avenue to make money out of you and government. And that's what we're seeing. And we need to be creative. Look, we cannot continue to look for quick fixes. Okay, so the chief of defense staff now says they are going to arrest marketers who are not selling. How many do you want to arrest? How many jails do you want to be able to put them in? And so on and so on. There are more critical things that we need to do with this thing. I bought fuel 290 2 days ago. Luckily, again, yesterday, I just bought enough to move me around 2 days ago. Yesterday, I was lucky. I got another place for the normal price. There are some people who've never in their lifetime bought fuel at the official price in this country. It's not the turn of us who are in the cities where normally we think that we're immune to these things. That's where we are now making it. There's some
those
people
of us in the
who never bought at official prices
and
from time immemorial. And they were the unheard people. Okay, so the problem is huge. We don't think that we need to solve it. We're looking at the problem from the top. We're not looking at it from the bottom. And that's what we need to do. We need to make those decisions. What we want to do with this thing. Can we make our refineries work? Can we transport these things by train, by pipelines? Can we secure the pipelines? Those are the things we should be talking about. Not ordering somebody to tell their members to stop smuggling. If you cannot tell their members, make it uncomfortable for them to do.
Yeah, NNPC is just chasing a red herring.
All right, let's take a few messages. Dami from Ikeja says the CBN has failed in its primary role of ensuring price stability and is taking up roles meant for the police, civil defense, AFCC, ICPC in tackling vote buying. It will never cease to amaze me. Gilbert Musa says on the subject matter, where the schools should be shut or open, this brings into mind the need for technology and digital applications where registered citizens can vote anywhere in Nigeria.
Thank you.
And let's see this one. It's coming from JP, and he says the customs is complicit. DSS seems to be chasing shadows, and NNPC needs to be truthful. Let's move on to business day. Now, the House of Representatives Tuesday approved the president's additional 1 trillion naira loan request from the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, this loan request is expected to fund the supplementary budget. The approval of the president's loan request comes after the Committee on Finance, Banking and Currency, as well as AIDS, Loans, Debt Management, have reviewed and given an approval. Devoe?
Come again, please.
All right, so we are on to business day, and this one has to do with the House of Representatives approving the president's 1 trillion naira loan request.
Yes, there were 2 requests in front of the National Assembly by the presidency regarding 1 trillion naira for supplementary budgets that obviously should be able to run government between now and when they hand over. However, there was also another request for the passage of the request to securitize the 22 trillion naira ways and means expenditure. Now, whilst the House of Reps granted approval for the 1 trillion naira, they declined on the ways and means securitization request. The Senate also postponed their own review of it until they come back from the vacation. Now, I don't think that's simply because they didn't know what to do. I think they're going to have a hard time trying to pass the ways and means securitization because literally it's against the law. You cannot spend money beyond what was constitutionally allowed and look for a way to try and hide it. No one is going to pay for that debt without looking for a way out of it. It's unfortunate, and this is the big lacuna that the next government will have to deal with. I see them not passing this bill until the next government comes in, and then they will have to take a decision on it because the money has been spent. The biggest question is what was done with it. All this money that you're trying to hide or you're trying to find a way to get it paid for, but yet we cannot confirm which infrastructure or aspect that it was spent in. Somebody's going to have to pay for it in the long run. And this is why we must be careful of the kind of politicians we elect. If you don't elect politicians or leaders that you can hold accountable, you're going to end up in a situation like this, whereby you end up in debt and there's no reason for it.
All right, let's move on to the next story. We have just a couple of minutes, and this one is coming from The Nation. NCDC reporting 111 confirmed diphtheria cases and 22 recorded fatalities.
Right, so this information is from the Nigerian Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Diphtheria is a disease that typically affects, is an infection of the nose and throat, and the vaccine for it is available, right? So all those itchy noses and throats that you have, people don't self-medicate. Typically, historically in Nigeria, we've been told that we've never had more than 10,000 mortality in any year since we've identified this disease in Nigeria. It's treatable by a professional. So all those itchy throats and runny nose that you have, please, people don't self-medicate. Lagos has reported one confirmed case and a death according to this report. Kano has the highest number of confirmed cases, 107, and 21 deaths. And this has happened between December 1st, 2022 and January 31st, 2023. Osun State has one case, So we can see that the spread is not just limited to one part of the country. Yobe State has to confirm cases with no death, and the Director General of the NCDC says that the surveillance is continuous, and they are working with partners at state level to improve the surveillance and identification of these cases. So people stay safe. When you have any ailment that is strange to you, please see a professional. Don't self-medicate.
All right, got time to take one more message. This one is from Sarati, and Sarati says the government knows oil thieves and they know who is gaining from oil theft, and this is why it will not stop. We need to uproot the system completely. That's all the time that we have for Freshly Pressed this morning. Thank you so much, Lakunle. Thank you, Devoe, for joining us, and thank you for listening. Thank you for your messages. Please stay with us. There is a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.
First bag.
We need 5 stories.
Thanks, Devoe.
Devoe.